What happens when a celebrated academic's life story is as debated as his research? Welcome to the story of Jason Arday.
Hey, I'm Garrett, intrigued and ready to dig into some complex narratives with Leah.
And I'm Leah, excited to explore today's curious case on laid-back learning with Leah and Garrett. Today, we're diving into the intriguing saga of Jason Arday, his rise in academia, allegations of plagiarism and fabrication, and the fallout that followed.
I once tried to run a marathon and barely made it halfway. Not gonna lie, my legs filed a complaint. So when I heard stories of someone allegedly doing 30 marathons in 35 days, I was like, wow, that's wild. And then I thought, verifying big claims isn't just for journalists. It's a reminder to check the basics before we build a whole narrative on top.
Let's set the scene. Jason Arday was a British academic born in 1985 in South London to Ghanaian parents. He became a professor of sociology of education at the University of Cambridge in 2023 and was widely celebrated as its youngest black professor at that time. His work focused on race and inequality in British education, and he used an approach called autoethnography, which is basically drawing on your own life experience to analyze culture and institutions. He passed away in August 2026, 9 days after resigning from Cambridge amid serious allegations. That timeline gives the story a very heavy ending.
Quick glossary so we're all on the same page. Plagiarism is presenting someone else's words or ideas as your own without proper credit. DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Think policies and practices to improve representation and fairness. An ethics approval is the green light from an institution to do research with human participants in a safe and respectful way. Those terms show up a lot in the story ahead. Also, an important piece of context, as of 2025, Cambridge reportedly had 75 black academics out of about 6,200, and that underrepresentation made his appointment symbolically huge, which shaped how people reacted when questions later arose. All right, let's roll on with how he got there. He grew up in Clapham, went to Heathbrook Primary, and later talked about big developmental challenges, including autism and being nonverbal for years. Some of those details were later disputed by classmates, which became part of the public debate. In secondary school, he earned 2 GCSEs and then took a sport-focused B.Tech, writing later about skipping classes to play snooker and pool. He studied education with physical education at St. Mary's University in 2008 and went on to a master's and a teaching qualification. His identity at that stage was grounded in physical education and coaching, which makes the later pivot to sociology unusual but interesting.
He earned a PhD in education in 2015 at Liverpool John Moores University under supervisor Phil Vickerman, with a thesis about peer mentoring and reflective practice for student teachers. He told a dramatic story about a benign brain tumor and memory loss right before his viva, saying he had to relearn his thesis. That's powerful, though it sat uncomfortably for some when plagiarism allegations emerged years later. He moved into university roles, becoming a senior lecturer at Roehampton in 2018 and co-editing a 2018 book on dismantling race in higher education with Heidi Sophia Mirza, a prominent scholar of race and gender. An important note, he said openly that he lacked formal sociology training and called his expertise born of lived experience. For some, that was refreshing honesty in a gate-kept field. For others, it raised questions about preparation for a top-tier sociology chair. His public profile really took off. He appeared on BBC's Sunday with Laura Kuenssberg multiple times between 2023 and 2025, which is a high-visibility politics and current affairs show. He was on BBC Question Time in 2024, guest-edited BBC Radio 4's Today program in late 2024, and even joined ITV's Cultural Advisory Council in 2024. He also served as a trustee of the Runnymede Trust from 2013 to 2024, which is a well-known UK race equality think tank. They later defended him in 2026, describing the scrutiny as racialized. All this made him a go-to voice, not just within universities but across media and civil society.
Meanwhile, the scholarly side had both momentum and early warning signs. In 2018, he published an article that 5 years later, in December 2023, received a formal correction after an emeritus professor, David Harris, had flagged overlap concerns earlier that year. Harris is a retired academic who emailed about similarities. Arday reported that contact to the police, who did not take it further. Then in 2025, Jack Grove, a reporter at Times Higher Education, put together a 63-page investigation with allegations of plagiarism, but it never ran after lawyers at Carter Ruck, a well-known firm, responded. There was even a misstep where police told Grove not to contact Arday. Later, the Met Commissioner, Mark Rowley, said that complaint shouldn't have gone forward. That sequence matters because it suggests the concerns were brewing off-stage months before they hit the front pages.
There was also a striking keynote in April 2026 for the British Sociological Association's 75th anniversary. The talk was called Wanted Dead or Alive, the Playbook. He argued there was a right-wing tactic targeting black academics by focusing on plagiarism and citation attacks, referencing high-profile controversies in the United States. Some attendees later felt the talk seemed like preemptive framing, especially after what happened next. It shows how narratives about power and protection can intersect with technical questions like citations and research ethics.
Then summer 2026 landed hard. In July 2026, Nathan Kofnes, who is a former academic at Emmanuel College in Cambridge with his own controversial history around race commentary, published a Substack alleging extensive plagiarism in Arday's PhD using detection software. Some people discounted that because of the messenger, but the claim pushed the story into wider view. Later in July 2026, the Daily Telegraph reported broader allegations of copied or very similar passages across publications. In early August 2026, The Guardian's Lanre Bakar dug into discrepancies in personal claims like extreme endurance running, threats, even a Brazil relief mission, and often found verification gaps. And in early August 2026, The Times' Emma Yeomans reported on alleged falsified research details, including duplicated quotations attributed to different informants, missing ethics approvals, and a false claim of funding from the mental health charity Mind.
Cambridge responded quickly. In August 2026, the university announced an investigation after receiving new information about qualifications and appointments, and Jesus College began a parallel inquiry. He resigned from his professorship and fellowship around the same time, saying the resignation shouldn't be read as accepting the narratives around him. In August 2026, he also stepped down from a British Sociological Association role, and Cambridge's Vice-Chancellor Deborah Prentice announced an independent inquiry led by senior internal and external academics. Then, in mid-August 2026, he was found dead at home 9 days after resigning. That's a deeply sad coda to a week of intense scrutiny and institutional action.
After that, ripple effects moved through other institutions. Cambridge indicated Durham was launching a review. Queen's University Belfast said it would investigate a 2021 co-authored article, and the University of Glasgow would review its 2022 hire. Liverpool John Moores University, where he earned his PhD, said it had reviewed complaints and found no plagiarism in the thesis. And interestingly, in late July 2026, the publisher Routledge still planned to release a forthcoming book by him in 2030. All the while, a high-profile open letter from supporters organized by the Good Law Project framed the scrutiny as a racialized smear and gathered over 10,000 signatures, though some signatories later stepped back as more reporting surfaced. The bigger picture became a tense debate about standards, representation, and how evidence is weighed when identity and politics are in the frame.
Here's the naughty part I keep thinking about. There were disputed biographical claims, like appearing on the TV documentary series 7 Up as a child, which the production timeline made impossible. He later said he meant a community initiative, though no clear evidence was provided. There were claims about being attacked at 18 and developing epilepsy, claims about a 2006 Brazil relief mission installing water pumps. Journalists couldn't verify those details, and big charity fundraising totals and extreme runs that reporters struggled to confirm. Why do these kinds of personal claims matter so much? Because they shaped how his academic stance was received, and some were cited in honorary awards and public roles. When those pillars wobble, it affects trust in the rest of the story.
So here's where I land, and feel free to push back. Lived experience absolutely has value in scholarship. It can surface insights others miss. But when big factual claims are a central credential, I think they need to be verifiable. If you say you ran 600 miles in 6 days, or raised millions for dozens of charities, those are checkable. Same with visiting professorship titles or funding acknowledgments. If verification consistently falls short, it starts to blur the line between an evocative narrative and reliable evidence. And in research, reliability is the backbone.
I hear you, and I also want to keep room for the value of first-person knowledge. Autoethnography, when done carefully, connects a life story to broader systems in a way that can be deeply revealing. For many people who've been shut out of elite institutions, personal narrative isn't a shortcut, it's a valid lens. Real talk, though, when scholarship includes interviews or claims of human subjects' work, you need ethics approvals and clear methods. That isn't gatekeeping, it's about protecting participants and making the research replicable. So I think it's both. Protect the space for lived experience, and also demand the same transparent standards that make all research credible.
Why do you think this case split people so intensely? Was it just the culture war lens or something else?
Partly the culture war lens, sure, but also the symbolic weight. In 2025, there were 75 Black academics out of over 6,000 at Cambridge. When a person in that small group becomes a public face, supporters feel protective because attacks can echo onto an entire community. Critics feel urgent about standards because lapses can be used to paint the whole field as unserious. It's a lose-lose if we flatten it. The only way through, I think, is careful process. Investigate claims, correct the record where needed, and don't generalize from one case to everyone who does race or equity work.
On the pop culture front, it's hard to miss how his media footprint amplified all of this. Multiple spots on Sunday with Laura Kuenssberg, guest editing Radio 4's Today Question Time, plus keynotes to groups far outside academia, like the U.S. National Association of Funeral Directors in 2024 and the Association of British Insurers in 2025. That crossover clout built a brand around inclusion and leadership. Then, when allegations landed, the contrast between the high-profile stage and the reported issues around citations, quotes, and ethics approvals made the fall feel even steeper. It's wild how public platforms can turbocharge both admiration and scrutiny. What if Cambridge had done exhaustive verification in 2023 before the appointment? Like line-by-line checks on publications, independent confirmation of claimed titles, and verification of personal achievements cited in awards. Would the story have unfolded differently? I can imagine a world where early scrutiny leads to corrections, maybe even a delayed or modified offer with conditions, like clarifying visiting titles, correcting papers, and locking in post hoc ethics documentation where permissible. In that world, the public narrative might be quieter, less dramatic, and he could have stayed in roles aligned with his strengths while rebuilding trust. Fewer headlines, fewer shockwaves, maybe a steadier path where the work evolves and the record is cleaner.
I could see that. And I also think about the upside for DEI efforts if the scandal had been avoided. A carefully vetted, transparent appointment could have modeled how to balance representation with rigorous due diligence, setting a template for future hires. It might have strengthened confidence in the process, maybe even neutralized some of the louder critics. In that counterfactual, the story we'd be talking about is how institutions raise the bar and widen the door at the same time.
Stay curious and keep questioning the narratives.
And remember, every story has layers. Thanks for joining us on Laid Back Learning with Leah and Garrett.